Grazie, thank you. Great to hear all about what's happening in Fano. Without further ado, we're now going on to session 1, which is Lighting with Future Generations, Youth Participation in Urban Lighting. For this session, I will invite actually Massimo Seri to come back to sit with us in case you want to exchange during the panel. Thierry Marsic from the city of Lyon will also join us here on stage. And we have a few speakers who will be joining us via Zoom. And first of all, the moderator of the session, Mark Burton-Page, General Director of LUCI. There he is. Hello, Mark. All right, and okay, I think we can start.
Okay, can you hear me? Just nod. Okay, good. Beautiful. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this first round of discussion for this first roundtable about how to involve children, young people in urban lighting. And so now in Lyon, I think we have on stage Massimo Seri. Thank you very much for your keynote. It's been incredible to hear about Fano. Thank you so much. And you're also joined by Thierry Marsic, the Director of Urban Lighting. And as you can see, in solidarity with all of you taking part online, I'm also behind my screen today. And so is Elettra Bordonaro, so joining me for this panel. She's Principal and Creative Director of Lightfall's Behaviour, joining us from London. Hey, Elettra. And Lars Oklund, you're Head of City Lighting of the city of Gothenburg. Hey. Now, you're in Lyon here in the Subsistance, so you can't see Lars and Elettra right now, but I can assure you they are here with us for this panel. Anyway, great. So I'm glad we could be together, really, with this hybrid format. And we're a bit late in this forum, but we have 1 hour, I think, ahead of us to go through some experiences and some questions regarding how to involve children, young people in urban lighting policies, and especially in the city after dark. I think we're all striving for cities that are more inclusive, more open, regardless of social condition and age. And I think the speeches and the presentations until now have really shown that. Giving an equal access to the urban spaces and also to lighting, actually. This is even one of the first principles that was put in the LUCI Charter over 10 years ago, and it's been signed by over 60 cities worldwide. We simply must think together better at how to build urban spaces for everyone and for children in particular, and with children in particular, become child-friendly cities. And yes, this really applies to the city after dark. So it's a great angle, really, a fantastic chance to open this topic and bring those two, areas together, the city after dark and the city for children. Get some ideas, get some questions flowing. And I think, inspiring us all with some of these experiences. So here in the Lyon Light Festival Forum, we always try to focus on creative lighting, for one. So we'll have some experiences of creative lighting, you'll see. And we also try to build bridges between the temporary part of urban lighting and the permanent side of urban lighting, which is this first roundtable, the permanent part. But this afternoon at around 2 p.m. we have the second session about light festivals and children. So I invite you to stay on for that. It's like something in 2 parts, really. But it's the same question, So 3 speakers. So Lars, Elettra, Thierry. And I've asked you all 3 to make short presentations, so around 10 minutes. And then we have time for a series of questions. And of course, Mr. Seri, if you want to give some opinion at any point, and I will have a few also questions for you. But don't hesitate. A note of importance here again. So if you have any questions for our speakers, don't hesitate to use the chat, which is working, which is really active on the live stream. So don't hesitate to ask any questions, and we have the LUCI team here to scoop up some questions, and we'll include those in the Q&A session at the end. Right? Okay. So now we can really start with you, Thierry. I think if you're okay. Perhaps you can present yourself. Not everybody knows you in the end. And yeah, go ahead with, what is the state of this issue in Lyon, and what are your experiences in terms of the city urban lighting department over the years, and perhaps ambitions for the future. Thierry, floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Alors.
So to start, I'm impressed by everything that was said previously this morning, and I think we have a lot of progress to make still in Lyon to better integrate the question of children, and especially at night. We all know that at night, the night creates a very special space where the representation of society is quite different from daytime, and especially for children. We see children very little in our public spaces at night, and that is a question that we can raise, and we are trying to work on it. And we will see, I will show you how we're working on it in Lyon. So here are some experiments that were carried out in Lyon. This was about 10 years ago. There were experiments that were organized. Our urban lighting department launched 3 projects with 3 designers and invited them to work on lighting, especially designed for children in daycare centers. So very young children. And the guiding principle was that these projects should not be expensive. They should have a small budget. And because we were experimenting, the idea was to say, this won't necessarily be a permanent installation, but it's a first approach. So here's one of the examples with a daycare center called Les Petits Soyeux. The first project was quite simple. It was just a signage. You see on the left of the slide, you see the daytime view of the building, and then these are just children's toys on the sign, which are actually what we call touch toys, tactile toys. Often in France, we talk about Sophie the giraffe. I don't know if people know of Sophie in other countries. It's a rubber giraffe that's quite easy for children to handle, and they can exercise their 5 senses with Sophie the giraffe. And here we push the experiment even further by adding sight to touch with this light that gives a signal, and it gives children a signal that says this is a place dedicated to children and dedicated to this daycare center. Same thing for another, Les Petits Tout, another daycare center. Here we have signage that's more graphic on the walls, on the facade, something that gives a signal to the city also that it's a place for small children. On the bottom of the slide, this is in Le Kindertreff daycare center where we had a band of light with messages, and the messages were more for the parents in this case. You could see messages about the daycare center with information for the children's parents. The second experiment that we carried out in Lyon, and I did hear what Francesco Tonucci was saying when he said perhaps we should also avoid reserving certain spaces, enclosed spaces for children. But nevertheless, these are special places which are public gardens or playgrounds. And in these playgrounds, you have different games for children. And here we wanted to accompany this with a different, more playful kind of light with different colors that you see in other public spaces in Lyon. But the idea here was with this set of colors, it would be more playful and happier. And so it's not just functional lighting. The idea is that it's more poetic. And on these photos, you can see the children playing on the swings, and they can have another perception of lighting in the city, a more sensitive, creative perception. Here's another example, more recent example, the Jardin Carquilla, where here we were restructuring the park and people wanted to give more space for a children's playground. And in terms of the light design, we also wanted to add a more sensitive touch with these lines of light and accents on certain games, and some darkness also, because we thought it was also important in public spaces that children could learn more about darkness. For children are often afraid of the dark, and yet it's part of what you will find in the city. So the idea is to preserve these calm, peaceful places that also help us when we grow up to understand that we don't always need bright light everywhere. The last example in a public garden, this was a collaborative project in a park in the 6th arrondissement of Lyon. The work was carried out with a school, and the idea here was, first of all, to use the children's expression in light, and especially with this luminaire. So it's something that's quite simple. This public garden was renamed the Garden of the Children's Rights. So it was a very specific territory, and we worked in a different way also by installing a switch at the entrance. And so a light switch was there to say that when you enter a room, you turn on the switch, and when you leave the room, you turn it off. It was a way to raise the awareness concerning the scarcity and the need to be more careful in the way we use electricity and light in public spaces. So this was an experiment that is still in place and has helped people think in a different way. Then, what is happening today in the present? Well, Tristan Debray our municipal councillor is working on this with his team to become a city for children. So we had to rethink all of the public spaces around the schools. So here you can see all of the projects that have been completed and those that are planned near and around the public schools. The idea is to make these areas more peaceful and more secure for children going and coming from school, and making more pedestrian areas if possible, or slowing down traffic if it's not possible to create a pedestrian area. And it was quite an ambitious program, because if you look at Lyon, we have 206 public schools, 52 public daycare centers, and 104 other daycare centers. So this represents a lot of work. And this, although the program started very rapidly, it was a bit of a race for us and we had to ask ourselves the question about how we were thinking about the city. Very often, lighting was a typical street lighting, and we had to, and it was designed for automotive circulation. And so our first reflection was to say, no, certainly not. We shouldn't leave the same street lights in place. We need to come back down to the level of pedestrians, come back down lower to the level of pedestrians. So this means designing your street furniture differently. This has benefits for adults, but of course also for children. And so we propose to go even further here, even if this work is still underway right now, but the idea is to use more creative lighting. Creativity can be expressed with artistic installations, and the light can be integrated in these artistic creations. And the light can also be can actually be an artistic element in the public space. So this is the work that we are currently carrying out for our future projects. Another element, this is just a quick glimpse at what we will be telling you about more this afternoon, the Light Festival for Children. This was actually 2011, the 2011 edition on the Grande Côte Hill, where a lot of work was carried out with children, the school children from a school nearby. The project was called A Children's Dream. So based on their drawings done in this school, the teams and the urban lighting department created these luminous objects. These are actually illuminated wires that reproduce the children's drawings. And it was highly appreciated by the inhabitants. And let me conclude by telling you about our broader reflections. Maybe you're not aware of this. It might be a scoop for some of you. After '89 with the first lighting plan, and then our current lighting plan, we're now thinking about the next lighting plan and completely revamping our lighting strategy in the territory of Lyon. And in this new light strategy, what we want to do is to combine all of our public policies. Here on the slide, you see something that looks pretty dense. We're trying to combine several things, this question of lighting and lighting at night and the city at night through the cultural dimension, obviously safety, peace and quiet, tourism, preserving biodiversity, etc. But we also want to integrate this question of child-friendly city? And this is a question that we worked on with all of the different municipal councillors in charge of municipal policy. And when I see all of these questions, they're all focusing first on adults, but they can also be targeting children. When we talk about mobility, for example, obviously we have to ask ourselves, how is our city adapted to children's mobility? Can children travel freely in our public spaces? Can they move around easily? Recently, we had 5 night walks around Lyon at night with groups of inhabitants, but there weren't any children. But one thing that really struck me during these night walks on one of the itineraries in the southwest of Lyon, in a sector where it's very ordinary light that dominates, with very wide avenues such as the Boulevard des États-Unis, if some of you are familiar with that avenue. When we started our itinerary, there was a child who was crossing the crossroads on their bicycle. And I thought, okay, something is being transformed in our city. There are children who are able to travel around our city on their bicycle without being accompanied by an adult. And I think we really need to push this reflection even further to become even more welcoming for all children in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thierry. I think this is very, very interesting. Sorry, I have to deactivate that. Perfect. Very interesting to hear from where you were, how it is today, and the perspectives for the future. I had a lot of questions for you, but you kept answering them as you were going on. Perhaps one of the questions is, how do we continue dreaming? How do we convey the spirit of childhood in public policies? And just to an element of context, every year, as you said, your department imagines a light installation for the Fête des Lumières. And this year it's Ricochet, literally skipping stones. I invite you all to have a look, if possible, in Parc de la Tête d'Or. And how do you keep on dreaming, and how do you translate the dreams into design? Perhaps that's a question for you. I don't know if you want to answer that now or later, but for me, it's a real question. Thank you.
Alors,
how do we integrate this question in our work? Well, I think in general, in the city, we try to think about more creative lighting. In recent years, we've been working a lot on these spaces that we call real disruptive spaces with borders. Lyon is surrounded by these wide boulevards and railways, sorry. And it's a real difficulty with these railways, because what we really wanted to do is to work on these differentiated atmospheres, more poetic, more creative, trying to shift more towards a light that expresses more things, and expresses in particular this poetry that you can find in the public space. So that's one place. It's a certain type of place, but I think we really have to ask ourselves the question in each neighborhood, how can we, with lighting, make the city much more pleasant, not only for adults, but also for children? And the poetry that you can find is one of the elements that will help us change this view of our territory, and especially at night.
Great points here. Also some points for the future and for future discussions. Thank you so much. I think, yeah, creativity is of course one of the big answers here. Now I'd like to turn to you, Elettra. And again, you're co-founder and creative director of Light Follows Behaviour. Thank you very much for joining us from London, I think.
Thank you.
Light Follows Behaviour is a lighting design studio, and the aim is, you know, designing with people and for people. So that's a real program. So you'll tell us about, you know, some of your experiences working with light, of course, in areas in the north and in the east of London, in cooperation with like housing associations like Peabody. You'll tell us all about that, and building projects with small kids and teenagers. And yeah, I had a look at your presentation. A lot of things look really interesting and fit really well into the discussion that's been going on until now. So Elettra, floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark, for inviting me to this conference. And bonjour, Lyon. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person, but it's actually my daughter's fault. These kids are a disaster, honestly, I tell you. I'm going to be quick, so I'm going to share my screen and let me know if everything is in place. And I'll start with the presentation. Okay. Yes. So we are a lighting designer based in London, and we always have this idea that engaging with people is particularly important, and people, you know, is very general. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, there's different kind of people, different communities, different ages, different groups and ethnicities. Particularly London, it's quite like full of differences. That is obviously what is interesting as well. So when it's coming to some location, you always need to engage with children, and particularly with lighting, I think is very important to address that for children, lighting is, since their childhood and since the very first days, an issue. You know, like they are sometimes afraid of darkness, and sometimes they like darkness. Sometimes they just dream about a place where there's all lighting, and normally it's very colorful and playful. So, and it's really different from the way we perceive our world. Just to make a very short example, we went to National Gallery a few weeks ago, and I just realized there with my daughter that her point of view is so different that she just see all the reflection of the lighting on the painting. So she couldn't see anything. So we had to carry on our shoulder to make her able to see. So I'm really dreaming. And I mean, like the example from Fano, it's absolutely fascinating. I'm really dreaming of a place where children are actually in charge, and their point of view, but also physical point of view, is taken into consideration. Of course, I mean, depending on the age we are engaged in, children, it's very different. You will well understand that if he's 5 to 8 years old, or, you know, from 11 to 14, or even worse, it's really worse, teenagers. Of course, you can't use the same way of engaging. You need to be creative. You need to understand the context before, and you need to understand also which is the right group, aging group, to engage. So we see some example, you know, one of the very, I mean, probably the smaller children we ever engage is the Prior Western Primary School, in collaboration with Peabody, where we were looking for ideas for a playground that was really close to that school. And they were 5 years old, and you know, we just started about writing about things that they wanted to see. But then I think we got a bit more professional, let's say. So I would say that the really first engagement, proper engagement we did in lighting is with the Ackland-Burley School. So we had children from 11 to 14, and we start working with mood boards and cards and atmosphere instead of just lighting. So you need to expand their imagination. You need to be able to make them dreaming about about lining. So that's what we did in Aklan-Burley. We actually create a new design. It was one night show as a fundraising event, so that was also quite fun. But was a fundraising event to improve the school for permanent improvements. So we did we planned this kind of design process where the children were really called to redesign and to rethink their outdoor space of the school. That was really quite tough and like very concrete style. And we transformed the place for one night, with all different fixture and, light effects, things that now are permanent. So the things that, of course, they're not like totally show, they're now permanent. And we managed, I think the most important things is that we really managed to open up their minds to a new field and to create a new way of thinking in terms of space. And we can go with video 1 now.
Changed the whole appearance of the school.
Yeah.
It just looked totally different.
Yeah.
With all the different lighting.
Does anybody else like that? What did you think about the way the school looked on the 29th?
I mean, it's kind of weird having something, you're so used to looking like this every day, and you go to school like every day and you just see all this, and then on one night everything changes and it just feels so weird just wandering around a place that looks so different.
It's familiar, but it looks different. Yeah.
What I really enjoyed was our first session where we looked at all the different moods, and that really inspired me, I think, because all of the different dynamics and different things you can create, you can be so imaginative with, and I think unlocking that freedom to us was a massive sort of thing that contributed to all of this design, and I think it really helped just having
That's the talk that Elettra gave when she showed you
Yeah.
all those amazing images.
Yeah, and
Did it
just
open your
discussing
mind
it.
then?
Yeah,
just
totally.
thinking.
Inspiring. I like missing lessons.
Okay, I'll come back to the presentation. I don't know if I need to stop the sharing every time, but so the second example I'm bringing is actually a bit more of a complex project, because it's been going on for 2 years, even if you see in this picture, it's just a really, really tiny underpass, but is in one of the most deprived area in London, is Thamesmead. And Thamesmead, it's under a massive regeneration process. And there we will collaborate with Peabody. It is a very big housing association, but also very forward thinking. Thamesmead, just to give you an idea, because if you're outside London, you probably don't know, is the place where the Clockwork Orange was actually filmed. And you see the underpasses in the film from the 60s is exactly the same as it was when we arrived there. So, I mean, there was this horror reputation linked to the place. And of course, the reputation of Thamesmead didn't help in the last few years, because it's a place where there's a lot of antisocial behavior, where there's a lot of drug dealing. And when we speak about children at 11 years old in Thamesmead, I think they're proper adults and proper teenager, and they are drug dealer by the time. So that's the situation where we act. And this is the underpass as we found. Now, interesting to notice that in Peabody asked us to work with the primary school, so with small children from 5 to 9 years old. And we've been there 4 days in a row, also by evening. And we just noticed that, the space and the area was mainly used by teenagers. And one of the main concern by Peabody was actually to be able to create something that was not easy to vandalize. Now, because of the location, because everyone is passing by, because the ceiling is quite small, because, I mean, the place is really easy to vandalize if you want, we just decided, and we proposed to Peabody to change age of group for engaging. And we say, look, if we want something that is really, I mean, meaningful here, we need to engage with teenagers. And they didn't want in the beginning because, as said, teenagers in Thamesmead are much more advanced than in other places. So we had to pray them basically to change age group. And I think we did well. We did well because we actually managed to find mostly girls, but because they were the girlfriends of the boys, I think it worked anyhow. Mostly girls that were interested in joining our group. Of course, we cannot force anyone. What we discovered speaking to them, we did a lot of engaging session with them. First of all, just talking and going through the place. We discovered that a lot of these girls and boys they've never left Thamesmead in their entire life. So we are speaking about people that are 14 years old and they just saw Thamesmead. So now Thamesmead is not the best in terms of lighting, it's basically just street lighting. So how we can ask these teenagers to design or to work with us if they couldn't even dream of anything different. So the first things we did is that we organized a massive night walk in King's Cross, so very central to London. It was Christmas time, so it was beautiful. And King's Cross is a Disneyland for architects and lighting designers because there's any effects you want is there, you know, from fountains to art installation to trees to screen and buildings. So it was really like opening up their minds and just make them able to dream about something different also in the place where they live. And we work also with words and again with atmosphere, what they want from this place. They were meeting there, they wanted to have something that was like relaxing and exciting. It came out a lot that they wanted a safe place, considering that they were probably the one creating, I mean, the adults were thinking that was the unsafe because of the teenagers. So it was a lot of contradiction also in terms of how to create safety for everyone and a place where they could see, but it was not too bright. So we create this, we work with the Grantchester pottery that they work with the primary school to create the tiles murals and we did the lighting. The lighting, of course, is it was basically lighting up just the murals. So we went completely against what is happening in those places where they have just horizontal lighting. We just went with vertical just to enhance the beautiful murals that we had. And we create obviously quite a strong detail. But the nice story about this is that this place is now so much beloved that people is thinking to create some guidelines for the entire underpasses in Thamesmead. There's a lot of underpasses. So it will be like a specific piece of work, and they will be detached from the other lighting, street lighting that they have. So it's quite interesting. And as well, a funny story related to this is that I went there 3 weeks ago because we have another project just close by that is a community center. And I always, every time I go, I check if everything is in order because I'm like, you know, like nothing has been vandalized so far. When I went there 3 weeks ago, what happened is that I found that the plaque, this pink plaque was actually bended. So I called Kate, that is a Peabody officer, and I say, Kate, they vandalized the plaque. And he say, we know already, they didn't vandalize it. Actually, they wanted to take home because they were so proud that they want to have their own plaque in their housing. So we are giving, like now we are printing plaques for everyone that participate to the project to give it. So I think that's a nice story about how you can perceive things when even if they're different from what you think. Another engagement that we're doing now for a full design process, I still in design phase, is in Portsmouth. So again, different because it's not London. So it's a completely different communities, it's mainly white British. And again, like it's a massive social housing estate with, it's actually relative calm, but kids that were never asked anything. So we did this engagement event with them just to, it was in summer actually, so we had to recreate the darkness in a underground car park, and we put a lot of greenery and things that the kids could play with, And we just show, you know, like how you can create a different lighting. Because again, I mean, these kind of places, they're normally lit just with street lighting. There's nothing else. It's just one layer, or bulkheads on balconies. You know, that's what we have in UK. And so we just dream about, you know, like how you can light up trees and what you can do. And then they discover the filters, the colors. So they were just playing. But it's a first step to have them involved in the process and make them understand how you can really change a space through light. And of course, I mean, how fun is to see the light in blue and the word in blue when you can. We are also working, and this is, I have to say, it's quite difficult. Burnock is a very, very deprived area in London. It's actually in the, you know, in the top list, top 10 of the second place, the poorest place in the UK, the second poorest place in the UK. So not a good reputation. And we're working with Unitas, that is an amazing charity group that is working with children from 5 to 18. And if there's any disability, they can stay there till 25. And they provide activities after school. So they're open from 3 p.m. till 10 in the evening. And they bring children to do dance class, arts, makeup, cookery school. And it is quite important for them to be there because they can avoid to be in the street. And we're working with them not on lighting. I mean, there's also part of lighting, but lighting would be next step. We're working on how you can build up a better reputation for Burnock and how you can give an identity. So we work with littering and, you know, like how you can spell and write Burnock in different ways, how you can create with your body Burnock. And this we did with the smaller children. We did interviews to teenagers as well. And I think, here we are just writing Burnock in different ways. And also how to spell Burnock is not, you know, it's not super easy when you are 6 years old. So we really did everything we could. And I would like to launch video 2.
I'm Sean Osborne, I'm 19 and I live in Deansbrook.
I'm George, and I'm 13 and I live with him because he's my older brother, so we live in the same place.
Technically that's true, and I wish we did.
I don't know.
Take it away.
My name is Fauzia, I'm 16 and I live in Graham Park.
Hi, my name is Benjamin. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Iran and I currently live in London in Borough of Barnet.
And like everyone's
Disclose the gun violence down there. We don't want to talk
there
about that.
because the reason is probably because like how close the houses are, and then like stuff like that really.
Yeah, to be honest, you know, it's better than before. It's keep getting better thanks to the to the councils.
So I feel like the regeneration of both parks kind of brings something to look at, especially the skate park. I think that's a really cool thing that they introduced as well when they built it.
There's more cons than pros. Definitely more cons than pros, because there's more violence than like happiness.
It's a nice community that's here now, because you know there's something to come and do really. So I think that unity wasn't sort of there. So I've met people who've lived here all their lives. I've just never come across them until I sort of came to the park and met other people.
Oh, that's really nice.
I will keep it super short because I know time is clicking. And basically, that's, I think, the last example we have where, of course, I mean, you understand that, I mean, like there's a massive problem of safety. And one of the things we are fighting for, incredibly, is to switch on again the lighting in the park. Because in Burnock, as I mean, like recalling what Massimo Seri said, you know, they like gates. So they lock the gates of the parks when it's getting dark, and they switch off the lighting. So they think it's safer. So now, I mean, you understand how this is like completely opposite to what I think we all think and share. The last example is really a short video, but it's nice to close. It's an event that we run about how you can bring the nights back also when in parks, because it's actually quite a dramatic problem in London. Parks are always dark, And last year with COVID was actually quite a deal because it's the only things we could use. So at 4 p.m. you can't do anything else. And how you can create a playful event in a park in darkness. So I'm launching video 3. And
There are 1.2 billion people without electricity in this world, and here we're talking about having to switch off tonight, so that's something we can all think about.
it was a night event, a picnic, nighttime picnic for everyone. And we managed to bring in March, very cold evening, more than 200 people. So I think it was quite good. It's that's the end.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Elettra. It's a real pleasure to hear you and to see all these great projects. I hope you got that balloon back at the end.
We have to give everything to the children. Are you crazy?
You know, I think there's someone said, I don't know who it is exactly. There's a discussion about this. Someone said, you know, education is not filling a vase, but it's lighting a fire. I'm sure you know that one. And I really agree with that. And it's, you know, it's the big question, how to light that fire. And I think in your presentation, you've probably got a lot of ideas how to light that fire. Yesterday with my kids, I was putting those lumignons, you know, for the 8th of December in Lyon. And I think a lot of children in Lyon, hundreds probably, I hope, were putting lumignons on their windowsills. That's tradition, it's culture, it's part of that. Perhaps a question, you know, how do we educate to good lighting? I mean, it's a vast question, and you've answered part of that, and we'll answer more. But how do you approach also the design part? How, because the kids will of course have a lot of creativity. It brings a big shot of creativity. You know, how do you prepare yourself to that, and how do you educate them?
Yes, I mean, it's a big question. And actually, I think sometimes it's easier to educate children. I mean, educate sounds a bit patronizing. So let's say light the fire. I like it better. It's easier with children sometimes with adults. And I think actually children can work as a tool to get to the parents. So that's quite also something that we always keep in mind. Children are, in a sense, are easy because when you show them example, when you explain, and you really need to show things, you know, like you can't just talk. You need to bring them on side. You need to show them some other example. You need to explain about atmosphere and have them really thinking and rethinking. Even just playing with, you know, like if you're at home with your children, even play with lighting at home, you know, like thinking, oh, this is, you know, a nighttime, now you switch off the light, or you dim down, or, you know, the cinema. I mean, all the things that you can see and you normally do, they can be related to lighting. It's just a question of how you think through and how you express and explain, I think.
Great, super. Thank you so much, Elettra. A lot about culture, about education, and how to continue that. Thank you so much. I'll now turn to Lars. We don't have a lot of time, so I really want to hear from you, Lars. Thank you so much again, Elettra. You know, Lars, you're the head of city lighting from Gothenburg, Sweden, and we were planning a webinar a few months ago. You'll remember, and the title of that webinar was "The Future of Urban Lighting." And
very
boom,
pretentious.
1 hour. You know, 1 hour. How you know? So I remember vividly you said the future of urban lighting. That's about children and young people, and they are the future. They are the ones we're doing that for. You know. So the idea stuck, and here we are, Lars, in Gothenburg. You do a lot of work using light as a creative tool, really, to add value to the quality of public spaces, and that's well documented. And one of the big questions of this table is tunnels and underpasses, because they're real places in cities that need our attention. And you do a lot of work engaging people in general, children in particular, with artists. So there are a few experiences with children, young people you want to talk about, and I think it's a moment to do that. Thank you so much, Lars. Thanks.
All right, I'll be swift. Don't worry. Just share my screen.
Beautiful, thank you.
There you are. I think, wait, share the sound as well. I hope you're seeing my screen now.
We are, beautiful.
Sweet. All right. Hello, bonjour, buongiorno. As Mark said, I'm responsible for the public lighting in the city of Gothenburg, Sweden. My name is Lars Ocklund, and I will just give you a very swift glimpse of the work we do in the city of Gothenburg, really, trying to incorporate kids and their point of view. We all know that structures for pedestrians and cyclists, mostly built in the 60s and 70s, nowadays can be very intimidating, as Elettra said. I mean, you've shown that in your pictures, especially during evenings and night times, I should say, but sometimes even during broad daylight, actually. This is a growing problem in cities like Gothenburg, and has often a huge impact on kids and children's daily life as they travel between home and school, and home and sports activities or other leisure activities. So it's a very important thing to deal with. This is why Gothenburg, for quite some time now, has tried to various concepts to improve this, inspired from the many experienced members of the LUCI Association, of course. My former colleague, Ingmar Johansson, in collaboration with Lyon, actually, invented and developed the concept of light and art. And this concept has, in Gothenburg, been very successful, mainly because of the three cornerstones. The first is light, of course. The other one is art, but also the third one, and a very specific one, the nearby community. It's very essential. And for the picture you see now, I hope, the tunnel in the picture, the nearby community equals kids from a nearby school. This work has over the years led to a variety of projects in Gothenburg as one, but they all involve these factors. It has also opened the eyes, actually, to the politicians and decision makers, to the power of light, what light is capable of in the streets and squares of the city, and how much more a light can be than just illuminating these surfaces. One of the more recent projects is the transformation of a place called Olaf Square. It's in the middle of the city. And this square is to be totally transformed. And one of the major tasks is to make it a pleasant place to stay in, even after dark. And to make an effort and really try to put the kids and the children's perspective in this city development, the project formed something of a three-stage rocket. In the first stage, an architecture educator and the teachers worked closely with actually preschool children and their thoughts and ideas on one theme, My Dream City. The outcome of this first stage then was passed on to high school students, who also, together with the architectural educator, worked with the preschool children's thoughts. They sort of refined it from their point of view. And in the third stage, they eventually processed it in a final workshop with a range of lighting designers, city managers, decision makers, and other stakeholders in the area. Unfortunately, this project is not yet finished, but I'm really, really curious, and I'm really longing to see what the outcome will be. Another way of addressing the children point of view and strengthen the participation in the community is this mosaic project, a bit similar to the tunnel project that Elettra told you about. This project was started in 2013 and has until now made some 1,500 square meters of mosaic all around the city. And all since 2017, the Traffic and Public Transport Authority, where I work, has worked closely with the project to support it with lighting knowledge and to enhance the mosaic panels mounted in the city. The foundation of this project is really in the kids attending workshops where you make mosaic pictures together, often with kids from other schools or other parts of the city, or even elderly people from the nearby retirement home. These are groups that not often meet, but very often has a very strong opinion of each other. Sometimes they're even scared of each other, especially with the kids and the youth and the elderly. The aim is to overcome this fear, of course, and literally build bridges between different parts of the city and people. And after this workshop, the mosaics are mounted on a wall, in a tunnel, or on a bench in the neighborhood, where we also highlight them through new illumination. And this is shown to strengthen the local confidence, really, and you being proud of what you've achieved. And particular success in this project lays, I think, in the fact that the kids have made a picture together with someone they never even thought they would meet, and they have together played one part in making their neighborhood a little better. And this was really the short list of what we have worked with during the last years in Gothenburg. But the conclusion, and I think somebody said it before as well, and my personal view to this is there is no general solution, really. I think we just have to try different ways of including the younger generation in all of the aspects in building the new city. One thing is very clear though, as I see it, light can be a very powerful tool to create this sustainable city for the future. If we just listen carefully enough to the ones who are the future, really, the kids. Was that swift enough, Mark? Because I try, now I want to show the video.
Let's do that.
Please.
Beautiful, thank you.
Ungefär 1000 lågstadiebarn har fått komma till ljuslabb och vara med om fantastiska ljusexperiment och ljusfenomen. Så nu tänker jag att vi ska tillsammans räkna ner och sen kommer alla de här lyktorna att tändas. 5, 4, 3,
Hej allihopa! Skulle ni vilja hjälpa mig att hitta det vita lilla ljuset? Ja! Vill ni det? Nu är vi här. Det är som i rymden, hör ni? Och vi bor ju här i rymden, i galaxen Vintergatan. Och när den har gått ett helt varv månen, då har det gått en hel månad. Ljuset för oss vidare.
Ljuset för oss vidare.
Kom efter mig. Vidare mot färgen röd, rosso, germes, rouge. Kanske kan fler språk man kan säga röd.
Red, germes, ahmar.
Att gå in i det här rummet kan väcka väldigt mycket små stjärnor eller små drömmar hos barnen som är väldigt viktiga. Och sen fascinationen över naturvetenskap.
Häng med!
Lite av det bästa var att dyka ner i havet.
Vi försökte hitta det vita ljuset genom att vi först var i öknen, sen var vi nere i havet.
Det kändes verkligen som att man var i havet och i djungeln och så.
Och de 3 färgerna så fick vi fram färgen vit.
Det känns lite läskigt men ändå mycket spännande.
Då liksom blev det massa olika skuggor i olika färger av våra händer. Om vi tog fram dem så här.
Ja, jag har alltid drömt om att vara i rymden och så.
Om man tittar ner i brunnen här så kan man få önska sig en sak.
Utanför här så är det en gågata. Ovanför den gatan så spänns det upp nu snören. Alla 1000 flaskor som görs, som alla barnen gör, ska få en lampa i sig. Vi ska få bättre lampor än den här så att det kommer bli ännu snyggare. Men alla flaskor ska få en lampa.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I den mörka vinternatten kan man gå och titta på en lykta som är en av 1000 lampor som hänger uppe i Bergsjön, i Rymdtorget.
Och det kan man visa sin mamma och pappa, man kan visa sina släktingar, den har jag gjort. Och jag tror att barn behöver uppleva sinnliga, vackra saker som väcker en fascination.
Lars, thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Beautiful examples of how to create, I think, start at least a great culture of lighting in the city. Thank you so much for this. Beautiful examples. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I will, before we wrap this up, we have 1 minute left. I really want to ask Mr. Seri, who is here up there on stage with us, what you get out of all this? What do you think? What's your reaction to these presentations and about, involving children in the urban space at night? And how are these experiences included in future Città dei Bambini, perhaps? But yeah, more specifically, yeah, what do you think, Vicente? And quite short, but if you can, it would be great to have your reaction to this. Thank you.
Sì, sarò telegrafico. Intanto ho trovato suggestioni e occasioni anche da raccogliere per la mia città. Però sono rimasto anche sorpreso perché molte di queste cose che ho visto le ho ritrovate nella città, che si sono ritrovate dentro il progetto Città delle Bambine.
I was really surprised because this is something that we can find in what we see, and lights represent safety. It represents colors, it represents suggestions, dreams, magic. And it implies all of this, and it can transform in a positive way any place. And depending on the situations, I've seen all the situations, and I really could identify it, and it was really interesting. It's great to see these young people that initiated all the findings that were done. And there's a historic space in my city, and it's a traditional space, and it was really dark, and it was not really safe and pleasant, and it represented the city. And it was at the city center, and it was not safe for children, so it was impossible for me to think that children could not go there and could not have fun in these spaces. And so now there are lights all over the place, and people can go there, and there are lots of children now from different age categories, and this is very nice to see that light brought them back. And as you can imagine, these places are really, there are lots of people during summer in these places. And this represents their dreams, children's dreams, and it's changed the place totally. And it's full of color, it's playful, and it's a pleasant place, it's a safe place. And safety is really important for people to go to places, and this is how we can recreate these social links. And thank you very much for creating these stimulations, positive stimulations, and thanks to all of these experiences, this really carries forward this project called Participation. And this game of lights inspired by their magic is absolutely crucial. And then it's connected to music. It's connected to many other things and many lighted spaces. And thanks to these stimulations by these children, this enabled us and allowed us to really create what was created. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much for these comments. I think they can also act as words of conclusion. I just want to ask perhaps if there are some questions. I know that there are some questions and some comments, at least in the chat, that have been put up there. No real questions from what I see, but some comments that this was a very interesting hour that we've just spent. You know, I haven't seen it fly by, but perhaps what I want to say is that this is really the start of something for me, so the start of a conversation, really, that we really need to continue. You know, the questions continue: how to enhance autonomy of children in the city after dark, how can they play safely outdoors, you know, how can policymakers you know, work together with different departments and you know, make sure that the children are really included to do with the children, not only for but with the children. So you know, I think feel free to contact LUCI if you have some more interesting projects or experiences to add to that. We will certainly continue that as a topic for sure. It's certainly very interesting, and there's lots of bridges to what happens this afternoon. So enjoy your time off for lunch if you're online, and if you're in the room here. Thank you very much to all 4 of you speakers, and well, we'll be together soon, I hope. And yeah, join me in thanking them. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Elettra, Lars, thank you.